Greetings, everyone. I am Joanna Idlewine, a woman, a wife, a mother, an educator. I am a student, a Brazilian, and a daughter of God. I know that I am a servant, but also I am a female leader. And I want to share with you this research experience that I had. And that contains a mix of theory and practice of ministry in a context of a Baptist and a Presbyterian church, here in the suburb of Atlanta, in Georgia. To answer the main question of my research, the question is, are women's ministry and ordination an issue for Baptist and Presbyterian churches in the suburb of Atlanta, Georgia? The question is large, I know. And to start to consider a possible answer, I worked with a specific place, people in a specific language. Marietta City, two first churches of those mentioned denomination, majority attendance of white Americans and English speakers. To find the answer, I spent approximately 1 year coexisting, working together, talking, observing, and analyzing those communities and their leaderships. Rather than think of Christian theology and her wholeness, two different hermeneutics were considered during this research: Arminianism and Calvinism. Arminianism relates to the doctrines of Jacobus Arminius, a Dutch Protestant theologian who rejected the Calvinist doctrine of predestination. In Calvinism, the Protestant theological system of John Calvin and his successors, which develops Luther's doctrine of justification by faith alone and emphasize the grace of God and the doctrine of predestination. Applied in the historical context of each one of those denominations and their doctrines and their theologies, and added to their location, language, and people, consequently, the three main sections of my research are: number one, focus on the historical information about Baptists and Presbyterians and the women's role. The second is the female affirmation in the present theological praxis in those two churches. And the third, the comparison between the Presbyterian and the Baptist church regarding people, language, and place. Understanding that people are their culture, language, their theology confessed, and place as their historical background. The methods that I used for make this qualitative research is case study research, since we are considering two specific objects of study, or as I already told you, two different churches. What qualifies this research as multi-site, analyzing more than one site, and the women in ministry and their ordination in those two environments. The conclusion will be present in this research, comparing the similarities and the differences between the Baptist and the Presbyterian churches regarding this matter, offering a suggestion of solution based on religion education, which is my emphasis in this master degree. Let's talk about my first approach, focus on the historical information about Baptists and Presbyterians and the women's role. As previous researchers have already identified, some of the issues with female ordination, such we can see the researcher Janet Moore Lindemann, a PhD professor in history and early American history at Rowan University in New Jersey. Dr. Lindemann emphasized that women's religion history uses indices of race, class, and gender to define how to determine behaviors are established between women of determined religions or even among Christian denominations. Subjects such as domesticity, sexuality, and body are quoted as fundamental for the gender argument in religion, which talks about the influence of land of those behaviors as well. Women from South and North America differ, but they differ minimally, considering Christians. The North American influence has grown in South America, and subjects as spirituality, gender, and power, as we know, are historical and political subjects. Conservatism has expanded among Christians through movements such as the radical evangelicalism that is present in South America. An examination of the New Testament and texts regarding the women's role in Jesus' ministry confirms and affirms that female presence of women in praxis was a reality. Also, an analysis of Paul's letters in the historical context and language offered critical thinking on the scriptures as a historical narrative with a theological purpose. Land, language, people, the context and history. This research is based on that. The second point is the female affirmation in the present theological practice in those churches. In my interviews for this project, I had access to some important information. The First Baptist Church of Marietta is connected with the CBF, Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. The Cooperative Baptist Fellowship is a Christian network of individuals and churches working together to spread the hope of Christ. They support women in ministry. However, they also have churches connected with organizations that are not women's ministry supporters, as the Southern Baptist Convention, for example, which the First Baptist Church of Marietta is connected as well. Reverend Mills is a pastor in the First Baptist Church of Marietta, and she has freedom to preach and lead in the local church beyond the children's ministry. That is her specific role. And if you look at the historical ordination of women among Baptists, it began with the original Free Will Baptist denomination as early as 1876. It happens with the Northern Baptists, now American Baptist Churches, USA, and they ordained women as early as 1882. One of the first women ministers was Frances Townsley, and she was ordained in April of 1885. A new question emerged in my research after this information. What happened from 1885 to 2023 when the news of this month of March tells us that the Southern Baptist Church is ousted 5 women-led churches? What's happened among them? And thinking about the Presbyterians in the interview with Reverend Joe Evans, his church is a woman's ministry supporter. He told me that the first woman ordained in the Presbyterian church was Margaret Ellen Toner. And she was ordained by the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, that we know as PCUSA, on October 24, 1956. According to Reverend Evans, the First Presbyterian Church of Marietta is a high supporter of women's in ministry, and they have an associate female pastor, Reverend Cassie Waits. Reverend Cassie has the freedom to lead and preach as well. But even among Presbyterians, culturally, as Reverend Evans says, he still identify a preference for senior pastors' positions in roles as Baptists, weddings, and ceremonials that are considered as a male duty. We know that in the New Testament, we can see various references to women in ministry, including female leaders and contributors to the early Christian churches, supporters, financial supporters. However, there is also some debate and controversies surrounding the role of women in ministry, particularly regarding ordination and leadership positions. But one of the most notable female is Mary. She was the mother of Jesus. She is revered as the mother of the Messiah and plays a significant role in the birth and early life of Christ. Other women in the New Testament who played important roles in ministry include Mary Magdalene, who was the first witness to the resurrection and is sometimes referred to as the apostle of the apostles. The third point is the comparison between the two churches regarding women's in ministry, considering people, language, and place, understanding people as culture, language as their theological past, and place as their historical background. And of course, then my conclusion. I want to say that my practical experience in both denominations was very positive. At the First Presbyterian Church, I was serving for 4 years before this internship program that I am doing in the First Baptist Church. In the Presbyterian, as I was working with the children's ministry and the bank food ministry as a volunteer. At the First Baptist Church of Marietta, I was hired as an intern, and my official position is a young adult ministry intern. My role was more expressive, working with adults now, and teaching beyond the young adult ministry. I've been leading biblical classes for older adults, as well as doing devotionals for students from our English school, and also participating in our liturgy every Sunday morning, reading and praying. I also have a radio program focused on the Brazilian community where I am acting with my husband, and we are teaching the scriptures in Portuguese every Wednesday morning. The experience of teach is always rich, and it was really rich for my data collection in this project. As I had 2 semesters to work with the community in the First Baptist Church of Marietta, in the first semester, I worked with the sense of manifestation of God through the arts. We did painting, poems, music. And in the second semester, we worked on vanished grace, or the lack of grace, using the author Philip Yancey to develop critical thinking and a new way to look at diversity in the church as grace dispensers. I sent a survey to an average of 200 people in both churches, and I had 70 answers, 10 from Baptists and 60 from Presbyterians. What I could see that Presbyterians are more willing to dialogue. The conclusion was that both local churches in the suburb of Atlanta are majority women's ministry supporters. The Baptists in their root and history are more conservatives than the Presbyterians. And the highlight of this difference is the Southern Baptist Convention and the Presbyterian churches in the United States of America. And I can see the Presbyterians as a place with less risk of gender prejudices, since the PCUSA has policies that do not permit the ousted of any women that is a church senior pastor, for example. I saw the Sankofa presence in the Presbyterian church. They were late in the first women's ordination in comparison with the Baptist church. However, they looked back and reconsidered the past. As we know, going back to our roots and reclaiming our past in order to move forward. It is a heroic act. Better today than in the past. New skin to receive new wine, as we see in Mark chapter 2, verse 22.